Okay, so yes, Prince Philip wore a Hema sword or a Western sword, again hidden in plain sight hips. And part two, Charles, Philip, William, Harry, and what's the other one? Right. Right. Not just Denmark, as well as England and other European nations, so not just England on its own, has these very specifically Western style, Western heritage, Western sword, very specifically Western, with the straight double edge, the centre line ridge, and the crossguard, and that is for another video, and the metaphysical meaning of it in symbolism, evolarism, etc. Spiritual soul meaning of that, because it's very in detail. So again, what was his name? Did we? Oh, Philip. Yes, Prince Philip and Charles III and the sons were at times these very specifically Western swords. And it's very hard, as Alan Watts said, to look at your own culture or own self as a knife never cuts itself. So it's almost impossible, because it's very difficult to see when you're in that thing. And then adopted from the Napoleonic time, from the French vest armour, bulletproof, very old style bulletproof vest, or semi-bulletproof, from the Napoleonic period, adopted by the English in the 1800s. Afterwards, the Royal Life Guards and the cuirass, the armoured vest, Hema vest, and TWC again here. So these are all wearing the Western swords, again with the very specific spiritual and metaphysics meaning of it. And here, part two. And if you look closely, again, very hard to spot from a distance, they have spear points on the flags poles. So then, what else? This, very important for my videos, very important to remember. Not my culture, neurotypical culture, not my culture, so not familiar with the culture, and not the language I'll be using in this video. It's what I say is what I mean. If I say Western sword, I mean Western sword. There's no brackets, as in normal neurotypical language. So, personal split of social conservative and liberal of my personality style. And then let's move on, quickly cover it, and then we've covered the very important bullet points then in as concise as I'm able, which is very difficult. So to reiterate, we did here on this one, part two, very specific meaning metaphysically behind the Western style, Western sword and why it has to be very specifically Western. Then, along with the accompanying weapons, symbolically, and again their meaning in metaphysics, and then let's keep these. Let me try and keep this very concise bullet point list to 2 or 3 points. So, neo-traditional or neo-traditional Western culture, saying here, Western bayonet, again very specifically Western, or Western civilization, whatever you want to call. The statues in the game depict of heroes this weapon, plus you can fight with it too as a live action weapon. Again, very specifically a Western weapon, traditional Western, and the symbolism again, and the metaphysics and the spiritual meaning there, and the importance of the not only the physical material, the spiritual and the soul meaning of that, and the morale of it. So it depicts here neo-traditional or neo-traditional Western culture. In the game, if you say antiquated if you want, or again neo-traditional, neoclassical, so these are again here hidden in plain sight of tradition, Western tradition, Western heritage, and there's many more games, but I just can't think, there's too many to think of, so I just kind of picked one that came to mind immediately because too many. So yeah, symbolism and morale, heroic symbolism, kind of like a neo sword, if you want to think of it that way. Then finally, moving on a channel recommendation here, again of Western heritage, and then classical all the way to the sort of Fawkes 1800s, if you want to call them, or Fawkes Victorian, the 1900s, the long 19th century is sometimes called it in books, and the oldest, what's the word, Castle of Good Hope, South Africa, 1600s, one of the oldest buildings, Western style buildings, and I'm sure there are others may or may not survive, but that's the only one that I am familiar with. And then here, again, Western heritage style, we've moved from WMA weapons to architecture, but still Western heritage. So again, all these here, this is hidden everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and this is the example, this red brick style here, as well as Boston and many others, but again those two come to mind because there's just too many examples and I can't think of everything at the moment. So you'll always be able to see it now if you look everywhere. It's here, and from the 17 and 1800s and before, again Western heritage. So again, it's pretty much inbuilt much into the West and can be seen everywhere if you look close enough. So just a basic follow-up, probably not as fancy, not as concise as the part 1 video, but just a sort of kind of a recap plus a bit extra, just to try and clear up of how you can spot this kind of absolutely really everywhere within the West, within Western civilization. If you look deep enough, you'll always notice it. Symbols of Western heritage, whether it be architecture or WMA. Oh, come on. There we go. So whether it be WMA, HEMA, or architecture or literature, it's completely built into the system. And again, can be seen in multiple places throughout the West. Again, please bear it in mind. I mean what I say. If I call a sword it is. I don't do any mind games of this culture. No offence to that culture can do what it wants, but in my wording, it's not, there are no mind games here. I just say what the thing is, and that's that. But call it perhaps it's to do with this. It probably is. I have many. This is one of them. And again, it can help your channels, your guys' channels. So good, because it's the information stuck in my head anyway, and I've got tons of it, so may as well help people. So there you go. Again, follow-up video, not flashy or fancy, just really basic info in a kind of very haphazard presentation. But again, a bit mind-fucking, but food for thought.